Her background is
But-
nerd.
Darren should have gone to school here instead of Cutter, because you are a devil. I can tell you that right now. A minute.
She
early.
rolls in like she's a Hollywood movie star now. She just here, hey, she's just here for the camera.
I guess I tooted.
No hard-hitting questions here.
Yeah,
Shall
but-
we talk about my one sentence resignation?
Well, I'm Darren Beckwith, Candace Bennett, and it's our delight today to have Miss Tara Thornton on Spilling the Tea in Studio D. Again, we are at Lakeside, and if you can't tell, we are in the primary building, so
Yes.
it's going to take probably at least one fire truck and a tow truck to get me out of this chair.
It's
I
going to
think.
take a
So
couple of
it's gonna
people to
take a
get me
while.
out of
So,
this
yeah.
couch.
Yeah, so, and I know I'm going to be squirming all day. I got carpet under my feet and a rocking chair. So, but anyway, enough about me.
The day in the life.
Yeah, exactly. So this is pretty much how we roll every day. I think.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
the floor moves under our feet, and
Every
we're always
day.
rocking,
Every
right?
day, always
Hey.
rocking and rolling.
Yeah, here we go. Okay. Well, Tara, thanks for joining us, first of all.
Thank you.
And so to get started, if you will, just kind of tell us your background, how you came to education, and ended up here at Lakeside.
Sure. It's a bit of a non-traditional story for
Right.
me. From my earliest memories, I did want to be a teacher as a kid. That was always my career aspiration on career days. It was to be a teacher. Even all the way up into my freshman year of college, I was a declared early education major.
Uh-huh.
And then in that first semester, one of the first classes I took got us in the schoolrooms, and
Right.
we were in buildings, and we were talking to teachers, and it was not a great experience
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
It terrified me, honestly. And I had someone that we were talking to, she was very upfront, I think, in a way of just trying to make sure that we were there for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But what she said really resonated with me. She said, if you've got other interests and other things that you're thinking about doing, you need to go do that before you jump
Right.
into education.
Yeah.
And I was like, I left terrified, and I went straight to my counselor's office at school at the university and changed my major. I was like,
Wow.
well, that's me. I'm done.
Yeah.
And so I ended up majoring in mass communications. I worked in marketing for a long time. But in each job that I had, I found myself in a trainer type role.
Mm-hmm.
I started teaching marketing to small business owners. Then I started teaching marketing at the collegiate level. And I loved it. I thought this was it. This is what I was going to do for the rest of my life. My husband got a job here at Lakeside in the high school, and we had our third kid, and one of us had to stop working.
Sure.
So I
Oh,
said,
yeah.
I will stay home. It was just going to be a couple years, but then we had our fourth kid. And so that
Yeah.
got extended a little bit longer.
Sure.
And then COVID came. So it got extended a little bit longer
Yeah.
of me staying home. And about the time that I was thinking, man, I'm kind of ready to start going back to work.
Mm-hmm.
One of our sons, when we went back to school after COVID, he had a really hard time reading. He had lost a lot of his progress in
Yeah.
first. He lost the last part of first grade. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he went back to school in second grade, he was like preschool level reading. It was alarming. And so I had to do a deep dive as a parent on how to teach my child
Right.
how to read. It was too much of a gap to expect the school to do it with all that was going on that year back from COVID. And I learned all the basics of teaching phonics to
Right.
early readers. And we worked. He's now in the 6th grade.
Wow.
And it took a couple years to get him
Yeah.
caught up to where he needs to be. But in that process, I learned that I loved doing that. I loved learning it myself, and I loved teaching him how to do it. And so when we finally decided, okay, it is time for me to go back to work, I did not want to go back to marketing.
Yeah.
And so I found a way to convince my husband to let me sub. And I was like, I'll just sub. It'll still be flexible. You won't have to worry about anything. It'll be
Right.
fine. And so for 2 years, I was subbing, and it got to where I was subbing every day, and I
Yeah.
would rather sub than be home. And then finally he said, Tara, just go get your licensure and just
Right.
be the teacher.
Oh.
And so here I am.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to be here at Lakeside. Miss
Yeah.
Norman, she was
Mhm.
so supportive when I was
Mhm.
subbing. All the principals, I subbed in all various levels here at the school district.
What was your favorite?
It was the
Obviously.
primary.
Okay,
It was. And so when I told her that I was going to go for licensure and I wanted to go K6, she said, that's exactly what I've been wanting to hear.
Right.
So it was wonderful to know that I
Yeah.
had the support of current teachers and
Mhm.
current administrators.
Mhm.
They've been so wonderful in kind of showing me the ropes
Yep.
as I've been learning. But I was already here. I'd subbed for 2 years
Right.
and had eventually in that subbing time become exclusive to the primary.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just here every day.
Right.
Mhm.
Never knew what I was going to do, but I was
Right.
here.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's it. And now
Yeah.
I'm doing it. I have a classroom. I'm in my second year of the RPEP program
Right.
for the state.
Mhm.
And light at the end of the tunnel on that
Yeah.
process.
Right.
I'm starting
Awesome.
to see it. I'm
So
excited.
you mentioned RPEP, which is actually like a teacher mentoring program for new teachers.
Yes.
Mhm.
So you feel like it was beneficial to go through that program?
Well, absolutely. It was one required, so
Sure,
that
right.
benefit was important.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that it provided that I'm glad was there. And going in, I thought, I've been in the classroom enough.
Yeah.
I've seen enough.
Mhm.
My husband's been in education long enough.
Right.
I was a little naive,
Sure.
admittedly. So,
Yeah.
and so that last year, my first year was a whammy of a year, and I was not expecting it. I was just
Yeah.
coming in thinking,
Oh, yeah.
I know exactly what's going to
Yeah.
happen.
Right.
And so the support given through that program, through the mentor teacher here, through Tina at
Mhm.
Dawson,
Mhm.
definitely made that year not just survivable but enjoyable.
Yeah,
Right.
That's
You know.
awesome.
Well, and I hear this over and over when we visit teachers that have gone through that program. And like you're saying, non-traditional and the ones that are just brand new to education. But one of the biggest benefits they tell us is the fact when they do come together with other novice teachers
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
just get to talk shop. Said,
Yes.
because a lot of times there's things that they face and they think they're the only one.
Yeah. You're
But to
not
be
alone.
able to
Yeah.
plug in and say, hey, I'm experiencing similar things. This is
Mhm.
how I work through it. Do you have any hints? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it absolutely was. I heard that a lot just in the program. Other, colleagues in the program would talk about how much they valued those Saturdays that we would come together
Right.
and
Mhm.
work, and they felt so much support.
Mhm.
I felt that as well, but
Right.
another thing that happened for me was a just overwhelming appreciation for my school district
Right.
and the co-op.
sure.
I felt like we were just immensely supported.
Yes.
We were immensely provided for.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it was just, I grew in appreciation because this is the only
Mhm.
district that I have
Right.
exposure to
Sure.
as an
Right.
employee.
Yeah.
And I was able to see just how much Lakeside takes care of their teachers,
Yeah.
how
Mhm.
much administrators rely on teachers. They trust us,
Mhm.
they empower us to do our
Right.
jobs.
Mhm.
And that's not the case everywhere that I was
Right.
hearing. And I learned our co-op, you guys are so active in the
Mhm.
schools, and the things that other colleagues were needing support with, that wasn't my case.
Right.
I learned I needed to be a little bit more quiet
Yeah.
because I was just like,
Yeah.
oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have all of this stuff.
Sure.
It's great. And I thought, oh my
Well,
goodness.
that's
So
awesome.
Yeah.
it was really nice to know
Yeah.
just how well everything is ran.
Mhm.
Well, and I share a similar path coming to education, radio, television degree, but I didn't have that discussion. I wish I would have probably, maybe early on a little bit, but I wouldn't change those radio days. And you can probably relate to this, the communication piece. All the skills that you learn in mass communications. They dovetail so well
Yes.
into what you do as a classroom teacher, right?
Yes, absolutely. I had stories when I was younger getting jobs about how just getting an interview was an easy thing for me to do because I could
Right.
write so
Yes.
well. I could
Mhm.
communicate my skills
Mhm.
so well.
Right.
And that was all part of that program, that
Yeah.
training that I received. And communication is something that it goes through everything from how I'm talking to the children in the
Right.
classroom to how I translate that over to the adults that I'm talking
Sure.
to. I think one of the things that happens a lot in our building is we forget when we're talking to adults
Mhm.
and we start treating and talking
yeah.
to them like they're the
Mhm.
6-year-olds
Sure.
too.
Yeah.
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 And it's a little shaken.
Yeah.
But when you're able to remember, okay, these are adults, and part of it, I think, is the communication background.
Right.
I think the other part of it is I so recently was the parent who did
Right.
not know the things that the teacher was doing in the classroom.
Sure.
I remember feeling that frustration of just tell me what to do at home.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't just be just read more, because we
Right.
were doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I didn't know what else to do. And so
Yeah.
I think because I have that communication
Right.
background, I'm able to take the skills that I want my parents to know,
Right.
and I can show them in a way and put it forth in a way that they're able to receive it, digest it, and implement it at home
Right.
to help what's going on in the classroom.
Right.
So, your first year, like, what's one of the greatest things that you learned? You know, your first year that you were
Oh.
like, oh my gosh.
There is so much from that first year, but I think probably the most impactful lesson was to not judge a kid early on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked that the children that came into the room at the first of the year, you have your students that okay, they have it together, they know how to follow the rules. You have your students that are still learning
Mm-hmm.
how to behave in a classroom. You have your students that very clearly there are struggles at home and it's bleeding over into the classroom. And the opinions that can be formed early on can really impact what goes on all year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our job, is to kind of nip that.
Yep.
Because by the end of last year, there was a student that I had last year that it broke my heart when school ended.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And I never would have thought that at the
Oh,
beginning
yeah.
of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of that, that connection with the kids. We
Mhm.
talk about this all the time. You've got to, above all things, you've got to have a heart for education.
Yes.
I mean, there's no way you can be successful in this business and not have a heart for kids.
Mhm.
100%. We know it's about relationships, but for classroom teachers, we've been there. I mean, it goes so much deeper than that. But the thing I think that's pretty cool about this age group is the number of aha moments you must go through watching these kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Especially learning
absolutely.
to read.
Right.
Oh, my
Yes,
goodness.
it's so exciting when you
Right.
see them start putting it together, and the first time that they do a skill without having to think about it,
Right.
because that's really the first time they realize their own
Yeah.
growth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
and-
like they know they're working
yeah.
hard every day,
Yeah.
but they probably don't think that it's actually doing
Right.
anything.
Right.
But when they see their own growth, one of the things that I really love to do is we do a writing at the beginning of the year, and then we will do a writing at the end of the year. That's a
Right.
similar
Mhm.
topic, and I will show them, this is what you've done
Oh.
Right.
all year long. This is how
Yeah.
you've grown. And they love to see how handwriting has
Right.
improved.
Mhm.
Their use of vocabulary,
great.
Right.
even the mechanics of a sentence have improved, but also just the fact that they wrote more than one sentence.
Oh, yeah.
They're so
Right.
excited with all of it.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh.
yeah, that whole, hey, I did that thing. I mean, that's
Mhm.
awesome. I
Yeah.
always enjoy getting to see that. So, I mean, as you've rolled in, what is this, year 3 that you're in?
This is year 2 for me.
Year 2
Mhm.
for you. So as you look back on that first year and some of the things that overwhelmed you compared to this year, probably don't overwhelm you as much.
No, not as much. Last year, my first PGP meeting, my professional growth plan meeting with Miss Norman, I was on the verge of tears the whole meeting. I was so overwhelmed.
Right.
We were sitting down. It was sometime the first 9 weeks, and I think probably the time where all of a sudden we were having to assess foundations, wit and
Right.
wisdom,
Mhm.
bridges, number corner, parent-teacher conferences were coming around. It was
Yeah.
it-
a lot.
it was a lot. And
Mhm.
so we sat down, and I didn't know I was feeling so stressed until she asked, well, how are you?
Yes.
And then I couldn't answer the question
Well-
because I was fighting tears.
Yeah.
And so she stopped. She was like, hey, it's okay. She
Yeah.
calmed me down. It was good.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
year, it was not that way. I was
Yeah.
better prepared. You're
Yeah.
gone through the curriculum
you
for
know
a year.
the
Yes.
routine. It's
Mhm.
just like after
Yeah.
that first year.
So I'm excited for another year under my belt
Yeah.
because I feel like this year I kind of know what's going to come up ahead in terms of how busy things get, or
Mm.
Right.
how tasks start getting stacked if you're not really watching your calendar.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm better on that side of things.
Yep.
And I feel like another year with curriculum, I'm going to be a lot more comfortable with content and how to connect those pieces
Yeah.
together a little bit
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, and that, I mean, that's very indicative of the profession. You get rolling so fast, and you really don't think about all the water that's hitting you in the face out of that fire hose until you stop, take a breath,
Yeah.
and then if you, like you're saying, I mean, if you're not careful,
Yeah.
you'll inhale the water, so to speak.
Yes.
And but yeah, that this obviously year to year, yeah, it's just you know, in front of those kids is the best growth, I think, as a teacher. Obviously, one of those things, I mean, I know that's what teachers do, but at the end of the year, you know, when you get a chance to reflect and think, man, you know, I my first year wasn't so good there, improved in this area. So
Absolutely.
so you know, as far as you know, working here, obviously this is kind of funny because Candace and I have this too in common, but it's, you know, having a spouse that works in education. Do you get to a point to saturate it at night or whatever and go, okay, enough school talk? You know?
We do have to be careful with
Right.
that because now my husband is administration.
Right, yeah.
So I pick and choose what I come home
Sure.
and are
Oh, yeah.
venting about
Yeah.
or celebrating because I'm like, oh, maybe we don't want
He
all
doesn't-
of it together.
yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is,
That's
you know, through the
awesome.
years, you know, my wife or friends of my wife or, you know, acquaintances or whatever, it was more, especially in the superintendency, more about what not to do, you know.
Yes.
And but again, I'll say this: in each step that I've progressed, I'll always go back to one of the key things. Number one, relationships, but number two is communication and how you communicate things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things is I think being, you know, someone with a spouse in another part of the district, whether
Right.
it's, you know, like my husband is in administration, but there are teachers in this building who have spouses that teach in the high school or are coaches or
Right.
they have a ton of different roles here. It really does become very obvious that regardless of your role, we're all educators. We are all here, and one of our mottos is kids first, and that bleeds through on any position
Right.
that is on this campus.
Yeah.
It is kids first all the time.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that's kind of a term that gets tossed around sometimes, and you know, some folks, you know, it's easy to say that they give it lip service, but I mean, I can honestly say that. I mean, I've worked here. Candace has worked here. That is one thing I would say about Lakeside, and no doubt the focus has been and always will be on the kids.
Yeah.
And that's so important. And, you know, for a teacher to be able to know that they're going to be supported,
Yes.
you know, when you're championing the kids, it's just it makes your life a little easier.
It really does. It really does. That was one of the biggest things, you know, when we talked about coming back with my colleagues that are in
Right.
our PEP. You know, a common thing that I've heard is, well, my district will say this, but then this is happening.
Right.
And they're feeling a disconnect. I think a lot of times that might be communication problems within a district. That I don't ever want to go in thinking that people in the school are not there for
Right.
the kids and they're not making
Right.
decisions
Right.
that they feel are in the best interest of
Right.
the children. But I think here at Lakeside, one of our strengths is that when the message is kids first, the decisions that are either coming down
Right.
from administration or being made in the classroom and being kind of pushed up from the teachers, it's very well communicated on why this is kids first.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing that, you know, that I remember most about it, I spent 2 years in the high school, 7 years in the middle school. But the thing I loved about it is how supportive everybody was of everybody, you know, and so, but and again, I will say this, obviously, we say it all the time. I don't want to ever take it for granted, but we're very blessed in Dawson and the region that we represent because we have great schools. Last week we were we had what we call our co-op retreat, and you know, some of these problems these folks are discussing, we're like, well, that's
Yeah.
We,
but yeah, it's great to be supported. So, you know, and the other thing I think that's difficult for teachers today is this. I mean, although curriculum, no doubt, number one priority, but at the end of the day, I mean, you got to spend the time to raise good humans.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a big thing. And especially here at the lower level,
Right.
we're teaching them the basics of how to do school,
Right.
why it's important to control your body,
right.
why it's important to develop ways to communicate your needs.
Right.
When we have a student that cannot communicate that something is bothering them and they just
Right.
break
Lash
down.
out,
That's what a
break
room like this
Yes.
is for, is to
Right.
teach them ways to cope and
Right.
ways to kind of come into their own body, because sometimes it's
Right.
like they just leave it.
Oh yeah, right. Oh
and
yeah.
so we got to bring them back and calm their minds down enough, and then we can teach them how to communicate their needs. It's a big focus in every single
Yeah.
classroom.
Yeah.
And I think I think that's one thing that I guess in the public they don't realize, that the school is expected to teach so much, not just
Yes.
Right. Oh yeah.
the
Mhm.
content
Yeah.
and the
Mhm.
curriculum, because you're trying to teach them structure and respect and
Yep.
rules and
Mhm.
how to
Yeah.
take care of themselves, because in a
Mhm.
lot of situations they're coming from places that they don't have that. Their parents are not teaching them those
Yeah.
things. So
That was you talked a little bit ago about, lessons from the first year
Sure.
teaching, and that was one as well. And I was starting to get it when I was subbing,
Yeah.
but just the amount of need there is for teaching things like that, I was surprised
right.
about. And I'm thankful that when our children were young, my husband was in education,
Right.
and he knew it's important that
Yeah.
they learn this now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He knew
Yes.
where they were
Yep.
going, and I
Yep.
didn't have that full grasp then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, talk about. So you did a lot of subbing, right?
yes.
Mhm.
So what was it like though once you finally had your classroom and you realized, oh my, I'm not a sub. This has my fingerprints all over.
I learned, excuse me, I learned Sunday nights are a little different now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for
It was
sure.
like
Right.
the children just keep coming. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
I think it really was. It was keeping up with all the moving balls.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
When I was a sub, in the moment with the classroom, with the students,
Mhm.
was fine.
Right.
I had classroom management,
Right.
as well as could be for
Right.
a sub that's different kids every day, and I wasn't
Right.
the normal person.
Right.
What I didn't have was I wasn't the one planning.
Right.
I wasn't the
Right.
one prepping. It was already done.
Yes.
And so when I was a teacher for a full day and they had a planning period, I had
Yeah.
nothing to do. So sometimes
Right.
I would go to the office and say, hey, what
Right.
do you need?
Mhm.
I would stop by the library. How can I help? It was
Right.
so nice.
Yes.
And planning and prep periods are not like that anymore.
No, it went from being that long to that long.
It was
Yeah.
there is absolutely
Yeah.
not enough time in the day. Sometimes
Wow.
to use the restroom,
Right.
I know.
to sit
To eat.
down,
Yeah.
to talk to any other adult
Yeah.
in the building. It doesn't
Exactly.
happen
Yes.
until
Right.
3:30 and the buses have
Right.
rolled.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Well, and like I say though, but subbing, I think that had to be at least a great, really, do I want to do this moment for you, because
It really was.
and you were able to hone in on the level you wanted to
That's
teach.
true. That's very-
Absolutely. I did one day in the high school. Said, "Oop, this
Yeah.
building is not
Yeah.
for me." I did a little bit in the intermediate school. I
Right.
was able to bounce around lots of grade levels. Plus, I have 4 kids in the district
Right.
too, so I
Right.
was aware of kinda
Yeah.
what went on in each level
Right.
just as a parent.
Yeah.
But when I was subbing my last year as just a regular sub, I was a long-term sub for a teacher that went on
Okay.
maternity leave.
Gotcha.
So I had, I think, those six or 8 weeks as that classroom teacher,
Right.
which that's what did it for me.
Sure. Yeah.
And when Miss Norman approached me about doing that as a long-term thing, I told her, I was like, yes, I want to do it. I was like, I'm considering
Right.
going for my licensure. I think this will be a good test run. And there was an original date set for the end of her maternity leave, but then it got bumped 2 weeks.
Wow.
And she wanted, 2
Right.
more weeks,
Sure.
if some things were going on.
Right.
And I was so happy that she wanted to extend
Sure.
her leave. I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
well, there you go. And I was not ready to
Right.
leave.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what about primary kids? You got to have some kind of funny story.
Well, there's all kinds of
Oh,
fun stories
yeah.
when it
Oh,
comes
yeah.
to primary students.
Sure.
What the thing is, there's a saying out there that if your child is in the primary school, if she's in kindergarten or first grade, we know all of your secrets.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh,
that is 100% true.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go ahead and tell you the story.
Sure.
That I was like, oh, wait till
Yeah,
we're off
yeah.
camera.
Yeah.
I promise you.
No names. You're
Yeah.
good.
No
Yeah.
names,
No
none
names,
at all.
but
Absolutely.
we've heard worse. I
We,
can
yeah.
promise you.
We
Yeah.
came back from fall break Tuesday.
Mhm.
So just Tuesday was our first day back after 4 days. And one of the things we always do in our room is on Monday mornings, we go around the carpet and we all get to share things about our weekend. So we were doing that for the break. I was like, anybody have fall break stories you want to share? And we were going through one by one. All the stories had been, we went hiking, we went camping, I saw my granddad, or all typical break
Right.
stories. And then one little girl girl was like, "Oh, yes, I have a story."
All right.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
go. We're going to follow the theme of things
Yeah.
we did on
Yeah.
fall break. She said, over the weekend, I was brushing my teeth and my dad broke the toilet and I saw his wiener.
That's awesome.
And
That's
we-
awesome.
We're
Yeah.
like, we've got a whole, everybody was there that day. Of
Yeah.
course they were full attendance.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these boys and
Yeah.
girls were just,
Yeah.
I was lost. I was like,
Yeah.
we were 10 minutes into our first day back. I don't know
Yeah.
how
And
you
you're
get
like,
this class back after
next
that.
story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, we're
Yeah.
rolling on as fast
Yeah.
as we can.
Yeah.
And then I think, is this something I need to tell parents got shared?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, how
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
handle that?
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, on lots of levels, that's life. But that's the thing. Again, that goes back, you know, to teaching, hey, what to share, what not share, that kind of thing. But to take that a step further, if you really want to know something, work car rider, right?
Yes.
Because,
Oh,
hey, you open the door and go, whoa, I didn't mean to see that. Yeah.
there you go. Or smell that. That
Yeah.
happens too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
Well,
gosh.
but again, that's the thing. I think about this age that is so awesome is they have that you know, self-aware. They don't have the self-awareness. They're
Yes,
so
They
free.
just share.
They are.
You
They
know?
are. We do Wordle Wednesday in
Oh,
our
yeah.
classroom. So every Wednesday after lunch, we have a weird block of time of like 15 minutes before we
Right.
go to activity. And so on Wednesdays, we come in and we play Wordle up on the Promethean board. The kids love it.
Yeah.
I make them get out their boards from Foundations, and we are practicing our phonics rules as we're
Right.
guessing. You know, if we know that there's two letters and then a vowel in the word, I'm like, let's go
Yeah.
through our digraphs. Let's go through our
Oh,
blends.
yeah,
What word
that's
could this
awesome.
be? There was one day we were doing it, and the letters up on the board were blank, HAR blank. All right, so that's what everyone was seeing.
Right.
And one little kid from the back of the carpet was like, "It's short. It's short. It's short." He just kept
Yeah.
screaming it.
Yeah.
I was
Right.
like,
Yeah.
"No, it's not.
No,
We're not
that's
going to do that." The
Yeah.
word turned out to be shark.
Right.
I
Right.
was like, "Let's try another
You were
ending
close.
to
Right.
it."
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
so when I told his mom that story, she said, "You know, he's got older brothers.
Oh,
He
yeah.
doesn't know. He
Yeah.
doesn't know
Oh, yeah.
what these words are. He just
Yeah.
knows what it is."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. we're like it once again. We're always talking about passing gas on the show.
Oh yeah. It gets there. Yeah.
You said we
so-
were going to get there.
Oh yeah.
Something about
we
it.
got
There we
there.
go.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think we've probably got a run of about 6 episodes in a row. I
Oh
think, so.
gosh.
But yeah, that's the thing, though. You know, even those lighthearted moments that kind of bring you back down to earth, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And
That's
you-
what builds those relationships,
100
those moments like that where we're
yeah,
just laughing.
Yeah, 100%. Because
Oh.
here's the thing: we talk about this a lot too. Is obviously, what we do is in education is so serious. You have to take time to laugh at, if nothing else, yourself, but also enjoy those lighthearted moments because I mean it's a tremendous responsibility. But I say this a lot. But man, what an awesome opportunity is how I see education. But you can't step away from what keeping it real, if
Yeah.
you will. So,
It's absolutely the balancing act. And, that's what I try to tell myself when I'm feeling those stressful moments rise.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, we've got so much to do. My default is to just go, and I turn military.
Yeah.
I was raised
Right.
by a military dad.
Yeah.
It's just my
Right.
husband is very structured. It's just
Right.
kind of where we go when we've got
Yeah.
a lot on our plates. But
right.
I've got 6-year-olds in the room.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
they're children.
Yeah.
They're little
oh,
babies.
Yeah. And I'm sure you have those herding cat moments as well.
Yeah.
Just, so yeah. Well, I applaud you for even trying Wordle with 6-year-olds.
I
right?
know.
It's
that's
fun.
awesome.
It's
Oh
fun.
yeah.
So I do
Yeah.
make sure we do a version that is you can generate random words. Sometimes
yeah.
I'll make the word and it's one of our trick words that we're learning, and I'm
Right.
making them kind of practice
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of
that's
recognizing
cool.
words. But it's never the actual Wordle. That way, if
Right.
parents are playing too,
Oh,
they
yes.
don't ruin it
Oh,
for
they
them.
can't
That-
tell
that's
them.
So we don't do
Yeah.
the New
Yeah.
York Times one.
Yeah,
but it's,
that's
yeah.
that's good.
So you're teaching teaching 6-year-olds. You have 4 kids of your own.
Yes.
So what do you do outside of work for fun?
That's funny.
Laundry.
That's right. I do laundry. I go to the grocery store. I make dinner. No, we our family really enjoys being outside. So
Right.
we do as a family a lot of hiking.
That's awesome.
We enjoy being here in Hot Springs, especially.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
just
lots of
That's
I mean,
places.
you just go out
to
your back
go.
door. There's no
Yes,
reason not to
yes.
enjoy the outdoors
Right.
Yep.
here in Hot Springs. That's our biggest
Yep.
family activity that we love to do
Right.
for fun.
So what is the makeup of your kids? All boys?
We have 3 boys and a girl.
Okay.
Our older 3 are the boys. He's
Okay.
a junior, a sophomore, and then a 6th grader.
Uh-huh.
Then our daughter is in 3rd grade.
Wow.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah. So
Mhm.
took a little break there, get a little breath.
Took
After
a little
3
break.
Boys,
All those
That's right.
all those
That's
brothers
right.
are going to
Yeah.
take
We
care
like
of their
to
little
say
sister.
that we've got 2 groups of kids because our older 2, they were just like boom boom, and then
Right.
so they're up, they're in high school,
right.
they've got their own world up there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then our younger 2, even though there's a little bit of a break, just because the other 2 were so close and older,
right.
that kind of forced them
Yeah.
to always be together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they play well together.
Yeah.
They kind of know how to jumble up, and
Mhm.
just like in a classroom, we've learned it's all about the combination
Sure.
of who's
Yeah.
who's with who.
Yeah. So I mean, by and large, I mean, do they all like school?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
really do. I mean, and on the high school boys, it depends on
Yeah.
the day.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
both do cross country, so it really depends on what the workout was, on if
Yeah.
they tell you
Oh,
if
yeah.
they liked it
Oh
or not.
yeah. Right.
But no, they do well. They do cross country. They're both in choir.
Mhm.
yeah.
They're both in advanced classes.
Yeah.
They're involved in lots of different things.
Right.
And they have a good group of friends. They've
Mhm.
both been at Lakeside since kindergarten.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
And
Yeah.
so they have this really strong connection
Right.
to the other students here, to
Right.
their
Mhm.
teachers.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They've grown up with a dad who either was a high school
Yeah.
assistant principal or here at the district office. And so they know now,
Right.
they definitely know that there's nothing they do in secret.
Oh yeah.
Everybody knows who their dad is. So
Yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah.
helped us a lot.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and I used to tell my son, I either did it, thought about doing it, or got caught.
Absolutely.
Doing it.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm,
so
mhm.
yeah.
Their dad
Can't
has that
get-
message
yeah.
too. You
Yeah.
cannot outsmart their
No,
dad.
no, that's exactly right.
Oh.
So, I mean, but do you ever get, any time for just you? Are you ever able to carve any of that out? And if so, I mean, do you like to read? What do you do?
Oh, I do. I love to read. When I have free time, it's reading. It's I personally enjoy doing hikes by myself, especially
Okay.
the
Yeah.
mountains here in town.
Sure.
I love hiking
Yep.
the mountains here in town. I love photography.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that's
before so many kids, I should
Right.
say, I was
Mhm.
really, really good at practicing on
Mhm.
my own and just
Yeah.
kind of going out and doing our own photography. That's
Right.
dropped off a little bit
Yeah,
now.
I could see.
Busy,
But,
busy.
yeah. Reading is probably my number one
Yep.
way to escape. We
Right.
love. I love the biographies. Just
Right.
finished the Roosevelt biography.
So
on Eddie.
are you one of these hikers that hikes in silence, or do you have music pumping? And if you do, what is that music?
Ooh. So I'll do music if I'm running, working out. But if I'm
Right.
hiking, I'm listening to nature.
Right.
I'm just
Okay.
or I'm talking.
Mhm.
So what's on your workout playlist then?
It's a lot of 90s rap.
Hey, that's your girl over there.
See?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
It's so
Yeah.
I'm not that person. Like I
Yeah,
don't usually
right.
enjoy it, but 90s rap in early
Yeah.
2000, that's what was
Yeah.
in like the high school workout
Yeah.
room. And so that's just kind of what I
Junior high
got
and
trained
high
to
school.
when
Oh, yeah.
I was in high school.
Yeah.
And so when I really want to work out hard, I've got to
Yeah.
have,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
Eminem
Yeah.
or I've
Yep.
got to have something
Yep.
from that time.
Speaking of that, has Eminem got a new album, record, EP coming out? I
I don't
thought
know.
I saw
He's
that
pushed out
somewhere.
somewhere.
he's pushed out some new songs. I
Oh,
think. I
has
don't know
he?
if he's got an
Yeah.
album.
Okay,
but
I gotcha.
yeah, loves
I bet
Eminem.
that message, that rap's got to be a little different with his life experience
Maybe
right now.
we had to. We had
I'm
to
going
look
to
that up.
Walgreens.
We're-
Pick up my prescription.
I
that
think he
kind of
announced he's
stuff.
about to be a granddad.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's
saying. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting old.
I don't like
We're
that.
officially
Well, I
getting
don't
old.
like now when my
Jacked
kids
up
turn
my
on the
walker.
classic rock stations. It's Pearl Jam.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Metallica.
Oh,
I'm like,
no.
when did this happen?
I know.
Yeah, anything that I ever enjoyed, classic. Like when I worked in radio, was in the '90s, country.
Mm-hmm.
And- but the funny thing is, the shift in that genre, country, is going back to that '90s sound.
It is.
It is really.
Our oldest, he's a country fanatic, and he would rather listen Well, he would actually rather listen to like Waylon and Johnny and things like
that
than the stuff coming out now a lot of times.
Well, and I think about like one of our favorite weekend getaways is to Nashville. It's a quick, easy drive, but
love that city.
We were there, and one of the '90s artists, Billy Dean, he was, said, I thought I retired in Florida, and he said I kept getting these calls to come back out on tour because '90s was such a niche now, and so he said, so what the heck? Who couldn't use more money?
That's right.
So
had that account.
Oh, absolutely. So what advice would you give to somebody that's walked a similar path to you? If they're on the fence about, do I really want to go all in with teaching, or do I want to, do what I'm doing?
I would say don't be scared of going into teaching. There's a ton of support. There's a ton of help out there. It's not too late. That was a fear of mine. I was 40 years old when I started the process, and I thought, I mean, people my age are kind of eyeing their retirement goals, and I'm going to be just starting out. I felt like I was too old, but no, it's not. And in fact, I think having other professional experiences, having so much time as a parent has benefited me as a teacher now. So it's not too late, and there's a ton of support. You can do it. I encourage it.
And I think about too, when I decided to make the career change, my one big life goal was to be set in what I'm going to do for the rest of my life by the time I'm 30. And I was like 28, 29 and a half when I decided to jump in there and didn't look back. But it's kind of the same thing. It was very intimidating when I did it because, you didn't register online or any of that. They still had the tables set up and the computers were going up and down. And I never will forget having to go sign up for that first class. I had so much time to think, oh, my God, am I doing the right thing? Show me a sign, And but, again, I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything because experience is just that. It's experience.
It's experience.
Yeah.
And I think too, you can be a teacher for a long career, but even if you stay a teacher and you are a classroom teacher for your whole career, education changes so much. And you hear a lot that it's cyclical, things will come back around, but the needs of students are changing. What's put on schools is changing. Your job will always be changing. So if you're someone who thinks, I just don't want to do the same thing over and over, great. Come on into education. It's always changing.
The day is never the same.
And so, but there's a lot of other things to do too.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
There's so much opportunity in the world of education. And I don't think that, back to when I was a freshman in college, I don't think that was... I don't want to say that it wasn't made aware to me because I was 18. Maybe it was. Right. But it didn't really sink in. And whatever method that was chosen to tell us about it, it didn't click to an 18-year-old.
Right.
Well, and back to that, having a heart for education, we've probably all experienced it at some point, but there are people out there that got locked into education financially. And nothing is worse for a kid, in my opinion, than those folks that are there. They feel trapped. They can't do anything else, but they don't have that heart, that desire to really mold, leaders of tomorrow. And so, but here's the thing: the great way outweigh that particular area.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So like I say, being a fairly new teacher, again, looking down the road, do you have any aspirations to be an administrator, or has your husband completely talked you out of that?
I don't know. I feel like it's still kind of new for me right now. Teaching is what I'm thinking. If I were to pick any other role, the meetings that I get most excited about are when I sit down and talk with our literacy folks.
Right.
So I could see maybe that somewhere down the line. And that goes back to why I got started in education now. That's what it was for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the other thing I will say again, as I walk my path in the steps that I took through Lakeside, very supported in any decision that that I felt like I wanted to make. They were there for me.
Absolutely. I think our district does a really good job of giving you opportunities to grow, and then making it known if you want to do more. Come talk to talk to someone who's
Right.
in
Sure.
that spot now,
Right.
and
Right.
Yeah.
they start feeding that to you
Yeah.
and letting you
Right.
kind of
Well,
pull back the curtain a little bit.
yeah, and I think that's the coolest part about our job is
Mhm.
getting out, and whether it be, you know, kicking off a school year, having fun with them, but, you know, winding up with that serious message why teachers matter and what they do is so important. Or like you're saying, we get calls from you know, early veteran administrators all the time, but even those that are contemplating admin, they'll call us or email us
Mhm.
and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, what do you think? And you know, it's just great to be able to share experiences. I
Right.
think. So,
Absolutely.
well, you got any parting words for us before we get out of here?
I mean, I feel like we've kind of ran the gamut on
Right.
what life is like as a new teacher.
Yeah.
I will say one of the interview questions that I got asked was, you know, out of these 3 skills, which one is your strength, which one is your weakness? And it was communication, it was organization, and then it was planning.
Right.
You know,
Mm.
those are and I would
Yeah.
say that was probably a very telling question.
Right.
If you had not been in education before, that question right there was like, boom, these are the 3 things you're going to do.
Right. Yeah.
It's not there's a lot of other things that are going to be on your plate, but it really is going to boil down to
yeah.
your planning, your organization, and your communication.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a good question. I stumbled on this question earlier, and we can kind of end on this one earlier this week. But if you had access to a time machine, would you want to go back and correct mistakes you've made in the past, or would you want to look forward and see what happens?
Ooh. Oh man, that's
Yeah.
a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Were you asked that question?
No, I was
Okay.
actually I was watching something, but it came across, and I thought, man, that's an excellent question.
Mm.
Yeah,
So-
it really kind of gives some insight onto
Yeah.
how a person
Yeah.
is thinking.
So what do you think?
I would probably pick go back in time.
Right.
I'm not always the great with using information that I have about
Right.
planning
Sure.
ahead.
Sure. Right.
So I would probably want to go back with 2020 vision and go
Yeah.
fix something.
Yeah.
I'm better at
Well,
that.
and you know, and my thought on that, as I reflected on that, was kind of a twofold thing. It's very similar to that, but also some of the big mistakes that have rolled out, or you know, didn't go quite like I thought. Man, what lessons I learned from that, right?
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
and as far as the looking forward piece, I think I would have to answer it like this, man. Give it all you got while you got it. I mean, today's the day, right?
Today's the
Seize
day.
the day.
That's right.
And because obviously we're not promised tomorrow, so that would be my answer, I think. What about you, Candace? We never got that out of
I
you.
don't know. I mean, well, I talked about it yesterday, saying that, you know, I don't know that you'd want to go back and change some mistakes because I've
Right.
learned so much from those mistakes.
Sure.
But it might be kind of cool to go ahead and see, hey, what could happen if it's something that's, you know, not great. You can be like, okay,
Yeah.
I know this is coming. I'm going to change it
Mhm.
before
Yeah,
it
yeah,
gets there.
yeah.
Have
So,
to
I
get
mean,
ready.
I don't know. It's kind of a toss up, you know? I
Right.
mean,
Right.
there's situations I would like to go back and change.
Yeah.
But then how is that going to affect, you know,
Yeah.
where I am
Yeah.
today?
I would
so.
throw that over to Katie, but she's made so many mistakes. I don't think we could cram that into a 2-day show.
He's so hard to
But I
would
will
be.
say it would be. I mean, you know, if there's a way you could go back and somehow like switch a lottery ticket or something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
become like
Right.
a
Yeah,
millionaire.
there you
Right.
go.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of situation.
Oh yeah,
Hey,
yeah,
you
that
know.
would be. That would be. Well, Tara, we appreciate you taking the time with us today. It's
Yeah,
been
enjoyed
it's been
it.
good. It's
Yeah,
been very
absolutely.
enlightening. And
Y'all are a
Yeah.
fun group.
yeah, and what I would tell you is this: obviously, going forward, if you need something, call Candace. That's all-
Okay,
all I
will
have
do.
to say.
Will do.
Yeah. So,
Well,
well,
we got to try to get up out of these in a minute.
yeah,
I
yeah,
know.
we'll
The
cut the
camera
tape
off for
before we
that
get-
one.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Michael will record.
That's
probably.
right. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of Spilling the Tea on the road. Again, Darren Beckwith, Tara Thornton, and Candace Bennett. So until next time, we will see you.